I should be like you, Mel.
Ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search TalkSport Fan Network.
Yeah, can you get? Oh, I'm too late. Okay. The transfer window has closed, and we are here to give the reactions. Yeah, sorry, that was really bad. That is, although from the hospitality and events at AFC Bournemouth, one of the nice little packages there, I think from a couple of years ago, mind. But yes, the transfer window has closed, and we are going to review everything to do with it, both AFC Bournemouth and the rest of the Premier League. Now, of course, it wouldn't be a transfer show if I didn't have Manny Thangaduri with me. How you doing, Manny?
All good, thank you, Craig. Just been slightly under the weather in recent days because obviously with the change of weather and so forth. But I think I told you backstage that the best part of being slightly under the weather is that my voice becomes a little bit deeper. And I happen to like a deeper voice. I cannot go too high, otherwise my throat would crack, literally.
There we are. There we are. Do you know what? Deep voice is not a bad thing at all. You know, bit Luther Vandross or, you know, good singers, good musicians, you know. So, yeah, always a pleasure to have you with us, Manny, deep voice or not. And, of course, nobody can miss him because he's bright yellow tonight. And everybody will know who he is. It's Mr. Matthew Harrison. How you doing, Matt?
Yeah, all good, Craig. Hello, Manny. Good to see you both. Yeah, looking forward to talking through our extremely exciting deadline day. But yeah, wearing yellow because obviously Mr. Jim White used to wear his yellow tie, so I thought I'd put on a bright yellow top. So there we go.
There we are. There we are. And I've got the goggles back on because, well, no, it's only because the doctors told me I can't wear contacts at the moment. So, yes, there we are. That's me normally. That's me looking a little bit more studious for transfer deadline day. There we are. Yeah, studious is the word. Let's have a look at the comments. We've got a couple that have come through. Chris Hubble has said, evening all. Evening, Chris. Hope you are doing well. John Bond has said, Barry White. He's a musician and a half. There we go, Manny. Happy with that one?
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with that. Certainly had his day in the back in the day and also had a bit of a career resurgence, as it were, not too long before he passed away. And yeah, certainly one to be considered. Thank you, Johnny.
Yeah,
or your name is Bond. John Bond.
John Bond, yes.
Consider me to be a little bit shaken, but not stirred.
He's full of it. Love it, Manny. Love it. Chris Hubble has said, it's been a window for the Cherries. Has it been a positive one, negative one? Let us know, Chris. John Bond, of course, has got 2 clubs. He does like Bournemouth, but he said small club will sell your best players to the big boys. Well, yes, John. Yes, we know you're a Liverpool fan at heart, but yes, you didn't take anybody off us this time round, did you? There we are. And Paul from Australia, how are you doing, Paul? Hope you are doing well, mate. Hope you're doing well. So, there we go. There we are. Well, I'll tell you what, let's get into it. And of course, the window has slammed shut. Let's discuss this window. And here we are. Transfer deadline day 2026. There we are. John loves us as well. He's giving us some kisses in the end. Great show. Thanks, John. So, the transfer window opened on the 1st of January and it's closed on the 2nd of February around Europe. The Premier League window shut at 7 p.m. Scotland's window closed a little bit later at 11 p.m. France, Germany, Italy, and Spain also close at 7 p.m. And Portugal's window shuts on the 3rd of February. The Saudi window also has closed today. So you can't go to Saudi Arabia if you wanted to. So there we are. There we are. It's a bit hot though there as well. Cristiano Ronaldo wants away from there. I'm sure we'll discuss that. And of course,
he's not the only one, mind you.
Yes, I think we'll come to it in a second because it's quite an interesting topic, actually, from what I was reading earlier on as well. But I'm going to hold that thought for a moment. So let's discuss the deal sheet. Matt, do you want to run through the deal sheet for us?
Well, yeah, can do. So the deal sheet, that can be key if clubs haven't finished negotiations by the deadline time. So the deal sheet can be used from 5 p.m, but it can't be submitted after 7 p.m. So the deal sheet has to be in before the window closes, but this then allows clubs to continue negotiations between 7 p.m. and 9 p.m, because then all paperwork must be completed and sent to the Premier League or the EFL by the 9 p.m. deadline.
Excellent. I didn't know this. But I am guessing this is something that Mark McAdam or Carvis Solkiel has come out with today and explained the going-ons with regards to.
This happens every window. There's always a period of time. That's why sometimes when the window shuts at 11 p.m. at night, you wake up in the morning, they're still announcing deals, because I think they get 3 hours after the window to finish off all the the paperwork and the negotiations. But if you make a late approach for somebody like Crystal Palace have this evening, which we're discussing a bit,
Yes,
this is very handy.
100%. And also, it gets rid of the 11 o'clock deadline, because I believe the 11 o'clock deadline was just that. And, clubs were working late into the night. I'm quite pleased they don't do that anymore. Do you agree, guys?
Yeah, I mean, I used to like the 11 p.m. personally, because it used to give me an excuse to watch Sky Sports News and stuff all night. But I don't know what Manny thinks.
Yeah, personally, gentlemen, I'm also in favour of removing the 11 p.m. deadline, because it's like, how we often say that the closer to the deadline that you work, the more likely that your work isn't going to be up to scratch. When it comes to transfers, there's always going to be a great deal of red tape and some other issues, which is why, obviously talking about certain deals, which, some people say have already been done, but currently are still slightly in the pipeline, at least. This just underlines the fact that you need to make sure you know what you want. and that you've got to get it done immediately. And the sooner, the closer to the window that you decide to, take your fingers out of your mouth and get your work done, the more likely that you won't get what you want done. And it's a lesson that we've all learned, especially if we've went to university. It's all about time management, you see.
Excellent. I'll tell you what, that's a great tip. That really is a great tip. Anybody who goes to university will know. Anybody who hasn't been to university might not know about deadlines, but I still always used to leave it till the last minute, to be honest, Manny. But we'll keep that one hush hush. Moving swiftly on. Too much of the booze.
To be fair, mate, I'm also guilty of having left it late, but that's because I knew that I was never going to be sanctioned. But sometimes, you have to just bite the bullet and get things done as early as possible. We're human, mate. We make mistakes.
Exactly, mate. Exactly. If we could go back in time, I'm sure it would be a lot easier. But I tell you what, let's go on to the next part. So February the 5th is a key date for the Premier League clubs signing free players that are unattached. To play for a Premier League club, the player must be registered by the 5th, as this is the deadline for clubs to register their new squads for the final part of the 25-26 season. The only exception to this rule is if the club doesn't use all 25 spaces, but must register the free player by the Thursday, the 4th of in March. There we are. The 4th Thursday in March. Sorry. So let me rephrase that again. Apologies. But must register the free player by the 4th Thursday in March. Have I got that right, Matt?
That's right, yes.
Yeah, not the 4th of March,
No,
the 4th Thursday in March. There we are.
There you go.
Bad me. Made mistake there. But there we are. That is all about the transfer deadline. Just wanted to come back to one thing that we just mentioned there. And to be honest, it's a conversation, of course, that's been ongoing. It involves probably one of the most coveted players globally over the past 20, probably the most coveted player globally over the last 20 years. Of course, Cristiano Ronaldo is gone on strike from Al Nassr. It's a Saudi Arabian side. I'm going to ask you guys now, has that Saudi bubble burst, do you think?
I'll let Manny go first on this one.
Yep, and I just remembered that I was muted, so I'm very glad that I didn't. But when I tried to interject, that it wasn't heard. I would definitely say so because, it was only it only made sense that obviously trying to capitalize on the on that huge win that Saudi Arabia had over Argentina in the World Cup, which really raised their profile immensely. But they looked to capitalize on that. And obviously, with the wealth they had, they wanted to bring a larger number of people in. Truth be told, when I heard of Jordan Henderson accepting a big deal to come over to Saudi Arabia and play under his old Liverpool teammate, Steven Gerrard, he left before the end of the season. And not only with his tail between his legs, but without a single penny in his bank account. It's only natural, really, that when you try to sign certain players from different parts of the world, which are a lot more liberal, so to speak, to expect them to be ready and willing to adapt to what is a very restrictive Muslim society while also playing is not going to be very easy. And it's quite clear, really, gentlemen, that some of these signings were really only made for the purpose of promoting the league and with Ronaldo and a few other superstars having been signed. And I'm not playing fast and loose with the term superstars, but some of these so-called superstars are pretty much near the end of their career. There was excessive promotion and some TV deals. There was even coverage of the Super League over in my neck of the woods, although I don't think that's available now. And, it's also common knowledge that Cristiano Ronaldo and his partner were not legally married, and living together out of wedlock is considered sinful in these Middle Eastern Gulf nations. And given that the UK has a large number of English expats, British expats, so to speak, living in these countries, they'd know about the rules, and you're always supposed to know about the rules and the culture of a certain country before you go there. And it's only natural that quite a few of these players will have some issues with regard to whether or not their families are completely happy and settled, or whether or not they just feel as though, you know, they're not really going anywhere, and they still feel as though they can, you know, really compete at a slightly higher level back in Europe or where they came from. And it just goes to show money isn't everything. And I really don't like this trend where certain players feel as though, you know, especially if they know that they have 2 or 3 very good years of football left in them, that they would just like to, you know, take this particular option and sign for, you know, a bigger pay packet every single week, which could, you know, come in handy for when they retire. I mean, I can understand that if you are at the end of your career where you only really have 1 or 2 years left, where you aren't as good as you used to be, but you can still do a job and you want to sign for these leagues. But some of these players are now starting to see the light. There could be some issues with regard to whether or not the clubs also want to continue paying certain players more money and these big salaries when they're sort of, you know, declining as a player, or their skills are amortizing a little bit. And, you know, it just, as I said, money isn't really everything. And I'm reminded as well of when Gary Lineker moved to Japan to play in the J League for Nagoya Grampus 8 after his international retirement. There were several people, mind you, back then who were saying he's making a dreadful mistake, because he still had some decent years of British football in him. He could have left Spurs and moved to another club. And there was talk about him possibly leaving Japan and coming back to play for Southampton, I think, back in the day. And had he stayed at least for another 2 years, who's to say that he wouldn't have played a big role in our World Cup qualification campaign, which, you know, completely flopped under Graham Taylor. Did we not like that? Pun intended. Lord rest his soul, as always. And the overwhelming narrative against that, and I think Jimmy Greaves, Lord rest his soul, said, you know, football's the last thing on his mind, and obviously with such a lucrative package as what he was offered back then, there was no way he could turn it down. There were several other stars who were playing in the J League at the time. But sadly, as we all know, his season was blighted by a toe injury. He was never the same, and he retired not too long afterwards. But without digressing, it just goes to show, you know, it's not for nothing that we say that all that glitters isn't gold. I think many of these players are starting to discover that it isn't really, you know, all about the money. And sometimes if you aren't able to really get that internal satisfaction from playing at a higher level and continuing to challenge yourself, you know, it can be, I wouldn't say soul destroying, but not exactly fulfilling. And especially with Ronaldo, who hasn't really won anything of note with his Saudi club Al Nassr since joining, you know, it's become, I just don't even know if he's really happy at the end of it all, but that's a story for another day. It's not surprising that a large number of players are feeling this way. And I think, you know, their target audience should really be, you know, players from, I mean, I wouldn't say target audience, but if you take a look at players from Africa, for example, who happen to be devout Muslims, many of them who join have no problems playing in Saudi Arabia. I think Sadio Mane is a perfect example of that. So it's not surprising that there are a few problems here. And I think apart from depending on these superstars and expecting them to improve the standards, what they really need to do is make sure that their own local players, especially those who are regularly being picked for the Saudi national team, get more and more of the opportunities.
Yeah.
But we'll see if they learn any lessons from this.
Matt, have you got anything to add to that?
Well, to be honest, I think Manny's pretty much said it all, really. To be fair, I've not seen much about the Ronaldo situation personally myself, so I'm not too sure exactly what's going on there. But yeah, in terms of that, I think Manny's pretty much summed it up pretty well on that one.
Yeah, I got to agree. To be honest, with regards to the Saudi League, I don't, you know, the customs of Saudi Arabia of course, when a player goes over there, they should know, she should be told, they should be aware of the customs of that country, which is, and nobody's going to be surprised by this, very, very different to the West. Of course, it has kind of got a little bit more relaxed in recent years, but it's still not relaxed to that sort of level, which Ronaldo and other people would be accustomed to. But I don't put it all down to that. It's a little bit like, and I don't know if everybody's seen the David Beckham documentary when he went over to the MLS. The quality of the MLS was quite low, and prior to this boom, the quality of the Saudi league was very, very low. And some superstars going over there is never, ever, ever going to really change it. And to be at the top of your game, you need to be playing against the best players in the world to keep challenging yourselves. And yeah, he's kind of shot himself really in the foot, Cristiano Ronaldo, because he's agreed this massive deal. Of course, he wants to get ready for the World Cup. But nobody is going to cover those wages that he is on in Saudi Arabia. And I think he's pretty much stuck there until some deal or some agreement can be done with the Saudi club. It's just the quality of the league it was never, ever, ever going to happen overnight. But I tell you what, let's move off that subject and let's move on to AFC Bournemouth's transfer deadline day and how it went. So let me bring this up now. Matt I think you're still watching Sky Sports, aren't you? Just for any breaking deals.
Yeah, it looks like that James Wilson has signed for Spurs on loan from Hearts. He was at lunchtime. I saw that he was linked to Arsenal, going to Arsenal on loan. So James Wilson's a striker, but he's signed on loan from Hearts and he's joining Spurs. So yeah, there's a few bits coming through now on here. Forest have completed a deal as well for Luca Nets, is it?
Yes.
He's signed. Yeah, he's now signed. So that deal's now looks like across the line. But yeah, I'm sure there's going to be a few more.
There we are. Well, you're going to keep us up to date once they come in.
I will try my best.
There we are. But yeah, James Wilson signed for Spurs. What looks like a massive move for him, and he's been instrumental, of course, in Hearts' rise up the league this year. They are top of the Scottish Premier League, so a break in the old firm's hold on that league at the moment, and fingers crossed continue
and
to
West
do so.
Ham have put in a deal sheet for Chelsea's central defender that we were linked to back in the summer. His name's gone off the screen now. We were linked to him.
Fair enough.
Axel Disasi?
That's him.
There we are.
Yeah.
So
there we go.
There we are. So I'll tell you what we'll do as well in a moment. So keep your comments coming. And what we do want now is what you make of AFC Bournemouth's deadline day, or lack of it, and also the transfer window in a whole. But let's go through this because we have tried to make some activity. Matt, do you want to fill us in on Luis Enrique and what's happened here?
Yes, so we made contact with Milan for Enrique, but unfortunately that was rejected by Milan. It was decided by the club that they wanted to keep the player for the rest of this season. So for the last couple of weeks, there seems to have been rumours and talks about the player and interest from Bournemouth. But yes, it seems that the Cherries did make contact, but unfortunately it was rejected. A wide player, isn't he, Craig, if I remember rightly? So obviously I know we do have, probably a little bit thin on the left side. in terms of numbers. I think it's only really Adley that's listed really as a left-sided winger. But obviously, it is said that Marcus Tavernier, Brooksy, they're not far from a return. So, and these days wingers can tend to play on either side. So I don't think it's the end of the world that we didn't get this one across the line, to be fair. But it does look like that we made the approach anyway.
Yeah, of course. And I think, whilst it would have been, in my honest opinion, a welcome addition on loan, I think I feel comfortable with where we are at the moment. And of course, I'll mention right at the end as well, another player that was hinted that we were in for that hasn't even been mentioned today. So, make of that what you will. But Luis Enrique, there was definitely some sort of interest, but I'm a little bit on the fence, with him. If he had come in, there was also some talk as well, his previous conduct, which made me a little bit worried. But he's definitely a player that can play, and he's definitely a player that's got some quality behind him. But yeah, I'm not. Whilst it would have been nice to have that little bit extra backup, I feel comfortable. Manny, what do you make of this?
Yeah, well, obviously we're going to come to it later, but I think one of the reasons possibly why the deal fell through was because, Milan were hoping in some ways to get Jean-Philippe Mateta from Crystal Palace. I think that fell through. So, Milan definitely were in no position to want to let Enrique leave. And if they're keeping him until the end of the season with Milan in the hunt for the Scudetto, it makes a lot more sense that they wouldn't want to sell him, really. So I also wonder if you kind of dodged a bullet with him, because as you mentioned, his attitude may not really be the best. I think, given that he's a Portuguese speaker, maybe he would have gotten on well with Evan Nielsen. But having said that, given that you've recently signed Ryan, would this bloke be necessarily the best influence for the youngster? I'm not too sure. But you dodged a bullet with him, and I think you've also dodged a bullet with Axel Disasi, because Chelsea fans will tell you he was a disaster.
There we are. Sometimes things happen for a reason, and maybe this was never meant to happen for the points that you've made there as well. But let's just quickly go on to the next page as well, because both Remy Rees-Dottin and Dominic Sadie both rumoured to go out on loan for game time, but no deals have happened or been confirmed yet. Matt, is there still potentially something in these two leaving Dean Court temporarily to play their trades, and where do we reckon that they might end up?
Yeah, it doesn't look like it. From reading and looking up on stuff, it doesn't seem that that's the case. But this was a rumor earlier on today. And yeah, I can understand, getting these two lads out for a bit of game time. It would do them the world of good. I think Dominic was out anyway on loan, but he had to be recalled to then let Julian Arehu go out on loan to Celtic.
Yes.
He's only allowed a certain amount of international loans, and I think he was on loan in Serbia. I think he was playing for a club out there. So I think the hope was to get him out so he can get some more game time, but it doesn't look like that has materialised.
Fair enough. Is the loan window still like the Premier League in the EFL, down the leagues, or do EFL clubs have a little bit longer to actually make these loans happen?
Do you know what? I can't actually remember on that one, to be fair. I can't actually remember whether, because I know what used to happen, I think, when we were in the lower divisions many years ago. I think when the transfer deadline day, the window used to shut, I'm pretty certain, was it a couple of weeks later, a loan window used to open up?
Yeah.
And we could sign because obviously that's how we used to get by signing players on loan at one point. So yeah, but I'm not too sure now how it works, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I was thinking that, that maybe it does close a little bit later on or will reopen. So if you know, put the answer in the comments. Manny, do you know anything about the loan window?
Not too sure I can really tell you, to be honest. And maybe everything sort of again, it also sort of boils down to the red tape that I told you about just earlier. Maybe some clubs are just not really eager to, exercise certain options, but there have been plenty of really good loan businesses that have been done in, I think just closer to the end of the window. Maybe something could happen in that regard, and maybe there might be some loopholes as well, almost similar to the ones that Matt spoke of. So there's still some time, I suppose. There still might be some time. We'll have to see what happens here.
Well, with regards to Dominic Sadie, just want to confirm he was on loan, as you say, to a Serbian team called Novi Pazar. So he played 8 games for them and scored 2 goals.
Wow.
But, hey, if anybody from Harrogate Town or Newport County or somebody like that is listening, maybe, and this is what I mean, his move to Carlisle, I know they were relegated from the Football League, but it was a challenge, it was a battle for him, and I think he will be a better player for that. So if that happened again and he went to one of those 2 teams struggling or another team in League 2 to actually toughen up, learn the game a little bit more at the lower levels, I think it's only going to do him better. So, and what are these people actually? You wouldn't want, Dominic Sadie to go on loan to Coventry and not play at all. You want to get him to go somewhere where he's going to have a real battle on his hands and play lots of minutes to stay up. So yeah, I always find that quite interesting. So I don't know if you two agree with me on that as well, but there we are.
Oh, definitely. Never underestimate the impact that a loan deal for a youngster going to a club which might need to win games to avoid relegation will do for you. One of the best examples, he's won the World Cup. He's certainly certified his status as a legend with Argentina and done good things with Aston Villa. They could still win some trophies this season. But Emiliano Martinez still looks back at his time with Reading, where he helped them avoid relegation, as one of the best times of his career.
Yes, he did. And he also went to Rotherham United, I think, as well, didn't he?
I believe he did.
Yeah, there we are. Might have to double check that. He might have gone to Rotherham, but we'll find out in a moment.
I will quickly confirm that for you, Mr. Beasley. Sheffield Wednesday, Oxford United, and Rotherham United, along with Getafe and Reading. So, yep, you're right.
Yeah, I missed out Sheffield Wednesday and Oxford, and you got Reading. But so yeah, I'm quite pleased. How many games did he play for Rotherham?
Let me just take a look at his career stats. So, yep, he was on loan for them in the Championship and played 8 games. 11 games in the Championship for Sheffield Wednesday, only 1 game in League 2 for Oxford United, 13 for Wolves when they were in the Championship, 5 games in the Getafe for La Liga, and also 2 in in the domestic cup. He also played 2 League Cup games for Wolves. And in the Championship with Reading, I think that was in the second half of the season because there were no cup games, but he played in 18 games and they avoided relegation.
There we are. So, Dominic, put yourself up to another challenge and maybe save Harrogate Town or Newport County. There we are. There's a suggestion. Now, this is an interesting one, though, because we were interested in signing left-back Fran Garcia from Real Madrid, but Madrid decided not to proceed with talks. Now, I've got a little bit about this, and this is from Alexander Smith, of course, of the Bournemouth Daily Echo. And this is what the article says. The Cherries were keen on bringing Fran Garcia in on loan for the remainder of the season, but Real Madrid decided not to go through with the deal, according to reports. The Athletic reports that in the run-up to Sunday's game against Andoni Iraola's former club, Rayo Vallecano, Garcia came close to leaving the club, but he did not and was an unused substitute. The left-back believed he would be coming to Dorset, and he believed it would be a good opportunity for the minutes he was lacking at Madrid. He then requested to train alone after the move was blocked by the club, as he didn't feel ready to return to training. That was not approved by the club, as he has completed the first 15 minutes of training with the team that was open to the media before he trained alone for the rest of the session. Garcia told people at the training ground that it was likely he would leave for Bournemouth to reunite with his former boss, but any chance of the move collapsed on Friday when Madrid opted not to approve the move. The 26-year-old worked with Iraola at Rayo with their stints at Madrid, the Madrid club overlapping directly, both at the club from 2020 to 2023. Sources out of the Athletic from the player said that they were expecting him to join the Cherries on loan, but after Madrid decided not to progress with the move, there was some disappointment. Garcia appears to be the fourth choice left back at the Spanish Giants, behind Alvaro Caracas, Ferland Mendy and Eduardo Camavinga. So there we are. Fran Garcia isn't particularly happy. What do you make of that?
Who would you like to go first on this one, Manny, or would you like me?
You can take this one, Matt.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, we'll do. Yeah, I think it would have been a good signing for us, because obviously we have got Julio Soler now injured. Looks like he's out for the season, doesn't he? It seems quite a nasty hamstring injury, isn't it, that he's got? So yeah, it would have been good to see him come in. Would he have played many minutes for us? Obviously, Adrian Traffer seems to have really made that left back his own position now, hasn't he?
Yeah.
So would he, have had many minutes here? I mean, who knows? He may have made appearances from the bench here and there. It's interesting because obviously we were linked to him quite a while ago. I remember we were covering it a little while ago that, we were linked with him.
Yes.
I don't know. I can't remember if that was like a replacement for Kirkez at the time or what. But yeah, I think it would have been a decent move. Whether he would have got the minutes he wanted, I mean, I'm not too sure. But yeah, it does make you wonder, doesn't it? In terms of the left back position. Obviously, we know Smithy can fill in there, but we want Adrian Traffer to stay fit, for the rest of this season and keep playing in that left back position. But then again, also when you look into the development squad, and if I remember rightly, we've covered it on a previous show. We've signed a up and coming left back as well for the development squad. So who knows, if we did need some cover, we do have someone in the development squad that is a very, very high prospect. But yeah, I think in terms of the minutes the player would have wanted, I don't think he would have necessarily got them, in my honest opinion. But what I know of the player, I think he would fit into our team pretty well. So yeah, in terms of that, I would have no worries at all. But looking at the players, from the player's perspective himself, I don't think he would have probably got the minutes he would have liked.
It's an interesting one because Andoni Iraola knows this player very, very, very well. He was Rayo Vallecano manager when he took him from Real Madrid. So he was at Real Madrid initially. He went on loan to Rayo Vallecano under Andoni Iraola. He made his first start in football under Andoni Iraola. Of course, he played for the Real Madrid's B team, which is called Castilla.
Castilla, that's right.
Have I pronounced that right? Have I?
Yes, you have Castilla. That's right.
Castilla. So he made his, first debut effectively full to La Liga appearance under Andoni Iraola. And that was against Mallorca, and of course 1-0 win. And then he was bought permanently. But what's interesting about this is Real Madrid tied in there a €5 million buyback fee, which they initiated. And he's played 63 times for the Spanish Giants since moving back in 2023. So Andoni Iraola will know him very, very, very well. And no doubt, can probably see where he can get the best out of him. Do you think, Manny, if this guy had come on board with AFC Bournemouth, that he could have potentially got that left back position off Triffitt and maybe made his move permanent?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, hindsight's always 2020. And let's not forget that, as Matt mentioned, the big reason why Bournemouth were going in for him was because of Soler's unfortunate injury, which, of course, has ruled him out till the end of the season. And this chap also certainly doesn't seem to be a bad player. He's actually quite tidy. And in addition to having done quite well with Vallecano and Madrid, he's also been capped twice for Spain and played his part in their qualifying campaign for the 2024 Euros, which, of course, Spain won. Sadly, I don't think he was picked in the final squad by Luis de la Fuente. But, a signing like him, and again, it's very difficult to say because, yes, as Matt mentioned, Adrian Truffett has made the left-back spot his own after struggling initially, let's not forget. Not easy to replace the legend, shall we say, that was Milos Kerkez. But again, it just goes to show that injuries can hurt you at any time. And I will say this right now, that if, heaven forbid, something were to happen to Adrian, then you could find yourselves up the creek without a paddle, literally. So he would have added a great deal to this side, certainly a very tidy player. And if he's highly recommended by your head coach, then, that makes the cherry all the sweeter. And it would have been the cherry on top, but sadly, didn't work out that way. And I certainly can understand Fran's frustration at not getting too many minutes and also feeling as though the return to Real Madrid has not worked out the way he would like. And it's all the sadder because, obviously when he returned, he thought that he was ready to offer competition for that left-back slot, but sadly it hasn't materialized. And surprisingly, given that Real Madrid aren't exactly pulling up trees at this particular point in time, they're behind Barcelona in La Liga, and they are struggling now to qualify for the knockout stages of the Champions League. I believe they're in the playoffs. You would think that Fran would have a bit of a role to play, and certainly if some players are out of form, but I don't think Xabi Alonso saw it that way. I don't think Alvaro Arbeloa sees it that way. So it's all the sadder for him. And I hope that he will come to a resolution at the end of this season. And maybe, you could decide to go in for him and sign him permanently. But it also makes sense that Real don't want to let him go just yet, especially at this point in the season where, anything can happen with regard to injuries and so forth.
Yeah, most definitely. So that is Fran Garcia. Of course, not coming to Dean Court, but not happy that he's not. So there we are. He wanted to come, but unfortunately, he will not be joining us this window at least. And at 5:24 p.m, our friend Mark McAdam tweeted stating that transfer deadline day was done for the Cherries and that Iraola was happy with the deals done this window. There we go. Mark McAdam said, that Iraola is very, very, very happy with the business done. So I tell you what, we'll go around the room. Of course, there was mentions, and I did try to actually get a conversation going with Alejo Rivera. I think he might be out on business with regards to Ian Sabere. I can't even say his word. Manny, help me.
Subiabre.
Subiabre. See, this is Manny. You're an expert with this. So whether or not there was any legs in that, or if it was, as Cole, take it away.
Bullshit.
It's still to be seen. But let's go round the room. Matt, are you happy with our business? And, did you expect a little bit more from us on deadline day?
Well, we'll discuss the actual transfer window itself shortly after we've rounded up the rest of deadline day, or a few highlights from deadline day. But in terms of the deadline day itself, I always like an exciting transfer deadline day, and it wasn't. But then again, if the manager's fairly happy with the squad he's got, with the investment that we've made in this window, he's said that obviously we've got players coming back, then I didn't really expect today to be busy for us, to be completely honest. Did I expect maybe a little surprise at the end, maybe towards the end of the window? I think we were all hoping. I think a lot of people today, I think on our Facebook page we asked what people expected of today, and some people were saying 1 or 2 in, or I don't think anybody really anticipated many signings coming through the door. I think it's good that we've got our business done throughout the window rather than last minute, like Manny touched on earlier. It's never good to leave things like this right to the last minute, because obviously it's all right saying you've got a deal sheet, but that only gives you another couple of hours. Sometimes these negotiations, as we saw with Ryan, do take some time. So I didn't expect it to be, well, I kind of expected it exactly how it's been, to be honest, but I would like to have had a bit more of an exciting one.
And I think with regards to Simon Francis and Thiago Pinto, they wanted to get everything done nice and early. It's all well and good, this transfer deadline day. I'm kind of the opposite to you, Matt. I don't like this last minute rush. It can unsettle certain players, and it can bring doubts and question marks over people that are already playing for the club. I like us getting the right players in and doing the right business as early as possible. And I think Simon Francis and Thiago Pinto are all about that. It's great from the neutral. It's all, to be honest, we've been enjoying some of the deadline day deals that happened or didn't happen in one case. We'll come to that in a moment. But I'm quite happy it being nice and relaxed on our front. Manny, have you got anything to add to that?
Nothing really, Craig. I think you've summed it up quite perfectly. You share my thoughts, of course, with regard to the wisdom of, doing things so close to the end of the window, and also how unsettling it can be for certain players. And there's nothing really more to add. You pretty much nailed everything perfectly. So I think that's sort of the way it is. And of course, Arsenal hardly ever do any business in January. I don't think we've really signed too many players in the January window under Arteta as manager. But we have, of course, received some news that Mikel Merino will be out for the rest of the season as he manages a foot injury. I believe he's going for surgery. There was some possible talk about us trying to get Sandro Tonali to join us from Newcastle, but there is no way that Eddie Howe would sanction that. Not when you've got a tricky Champions League knockout tie against Karabag to negotiate. So,
yes.
Obviously, I want to say right now that I'm very grateful to a certain Dominic Solanke. Thank you, boys, for, rejuvenating his career and bringing him up a level. He scored 2 goals for Spurs against City, and that's helped Arsenal. But knowing us, we will have some injuries. We will have some complacent performances. The only question is, will the likes of City, Villa, Manchester United and others capitalise? Remains to be seen. A lot of people are very quick to write off this league as ours already. I say to you, as the voice of experience, do not count your chickens.
There we are. There we are. And just a quick one. If Pep Guardiola is watching, which he probably isn't, we did the double over Spurs. There we are. See, Semenyo should have stayed here. I tell you what,
Yep.
let's go. Let's go through the
Beautiful.
comments.
Beating Spurs is clearly not for everyone.
Exactly. I'm going to go through the comments from where we left off. John Bond has said, made Matt smile. That's about these kisses that he left on his message. No, we love you too, John. Of course, Jerry K has said, evening. Good evening, Jerry. And he's put some applauding emojis. Thank you for being with us. Sean, I hope you're doing well, Sean. He said, no new signings today, then it's bad, okay, depending when injuries are coming back. Yes, that's the big part is, hopefully we can get some of these players back. Marcus Tavernier, especially. Julio Soler looks like he's going to have be out for a while. Of course, we know about Tyler Adams, Justin Kluivert. I probably missed some players here. David Brooks, believe it or not, I saw David Brooks actually earlier on out and about, and he looks like he's moving all right, but hey, it might be something, just that he needs to get up to speed. So yeah, fingers crossed. David Brooks will be back fairly soon, but he's not on crutches or anything. Shauna said, can we still get loans? Just double checking, as I don't think we can. No, we can't get loans. However, I think the EFL have a loan window where they can loan players from the Premier League. And that's why Reece Dottin and Dominic Sadie, I think might be going out on loan to a team, and like I say, I'd rather they go out on loan to a team that are struggling rather than the team that are at the top of their league. We want them to get minutes, we want them to get games, and we want them to be challenged effectively. Mark Collins, good evening, Mark. Hope you are doing well, my friend. And Sean has put in here, if they are a certain age, they don't count as part of the 25-man squad.
Yeah.
There we are. Chris Hubble has said, you're so right, Craig. I argue with you. I can't argue with you. Is that I can't argue with you?
I can't argue with you. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that's fine. Well, to be honest, you can argue with me if you want, Chris. But every opinion is justified. So feel free. If there's something that you don't agree with, just let me know. And yeah, you're more than welcome to debate it. Always open to that. Mark Collins has said, our team is better when numbers are down and we have a crisis.
Yeah.
That's a fair point, isn't it? That's when we beat Forest last season. I was really concerned, played Dango up front, and look what happened. Say no more. 4 players in, not bad for AFC Bournemouth. I've got to agree with that. We'll come to that in just a moment as well. Darren from Australia. Oh, crikey, what time is it in Australia?
4:30 a.m. It's
4:30 a.m. Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't read the. See, I've read your name, Darren. See, it's like the blinkered vision. Hey, I need to go to Specsavers. Need new glasses. What do you reckon? He's put, hi Craig, Matt and Manny, 4:30 a.m. and just got up here in Perth. Looking forward to watching over again. Great topic show, Daz, Cherry Down Under. Always a pleasure to have you with us. Chris has said, hi Darren. Darren has said, g'day Chris. That's a good Australian accent, isn't it? G'day Daz. And Darren has said, I think when injuries recover and return, we have a great squad with depth on the bench. I'm excited for a good second half of the season. Yeah, I agree with that. Once we get these injuries back, what squad? And I agree with you, Darren. AFCB are doing good this season. There we go. There we are. Matt, should we go for a roundup of today's transfer deadline day?
Yeah, let's have a look at some of the bits that have gone on. Yeah.
here we are. So this is all the exciting stuff that has been going on today. We are going to touch on briefly, but keep your comments coming. And thank you everybody who is in the room. We have had at one point 22 people watching over various sources this evening. So if you're new here, hit like, hit subscribe, hit the bell button. You're always welcome, and get involved. We're a nice bunch here. Everybody in the chat's nice. We're a good bunch here. So here we go. Stefan Ortega has joined Nottingham Forest for £500,000, and Alexander Shinchenko has joined Ajax in a permanent transfer deal, of course, from Arsenal. This was completed over the weekend. Any thoughts on these two guys?
Let me start by saying thank you and goodbye, Alexander Zinchenko. Never should have started for Arsenal at the expense of a far more polished and accomplished left-back in Kieran Tierney, who, unlike Zinchenko, will be going to the World Cup. Yes, I went there. And obviously the loan move to Nottingham Forest has not worked out very well. Couldn't make the grade under Nuno, Ange Postecoglou or Sean Dyche. And, of course, that wretched loss to Wrexham in the FA Cup has pretty much sealed his fate. Makes sense for him to move to Ajax. Maybe he could have a career renaissance. Worked for Jordan Henderson, if I do say so myself, now back in the Premier League with Brentford. Let's see how well he does. And Craig, you and I were discussing the Ortega deal. We were talking about how Forest were interested in either getting him or Jose Sarr from Wolves. And I said that there's no chance that Jose Sarr would leave because he's won back his place in the Wolves team. He's their captain and playing regularly. If he were to move to Forest, he'd be in competition with Matt Sells, who pretty much has his spot locked up. And of course, there's Kieran Tierney's Scotland teammate Angus Gunn, who hasn't kicked a ball on the field in anger. And I'm a bit surprised that Angus Gunn hasn't been allowed to move anywhere, although I might possibly take a look and see what's up with him. But Ortega was probably more the expected signing. And this should be a good move for him because I think he will relish the competition, but he might also fancy his chances of breaking into the Forest team and maybe staying there. Whereas under Manchester City, yes, he played in the cup games and yes, he played a big role in City's Premiership win in 23-24 at our expense, of course. Ederson was always going to be the number one there. And with the club having let Ederson go and signed Gigi Donnarumma and James Trafford, there were no prospects for him, and I'm glad that he secured a move. And there's still nothing really about Angus. I think there's nothing really about Angus Gunn moving anywhere. But Ortega, great move for him.
I seem to remember because he signed from Norwich City, and there was some sort of rumor going on about him going back to Norwich. He's only played once for Forest, hasn't he? And I believe that's a cup game. But I think Stefan Ortega is going to put a little bit more pressure, on, of course, Matt Sells. So I guess that kind of makes a bit more sense.
Gunn hasn't played a game. He wasn't even picked for the squad at the best of times. And it's an indictment of how lowly rated he is that although he is now, of course, second goalkeeper, Sean Dyche opted to sign Ortega in the window. He needs to get some game time. Scotland are going to the World Cup, and especially with Craig Gordon having gotten minutes as of late for Hearts, Gunn needs to get some game time. Otherwise, he might as well be Tommy Gunn more than anything else.
Brilliant. It's brilliant. Matt, have you got anything to add to that?
No, not really. Obviously, Manny's the man when it comes to Arsenal. So obviously,
yes.
Yeah, he's round this off pretty well. So yeah, we can move on to the next one.
Okay, well, this is a late £20 million offer, which Everton have accepted from Crystal Palace, of all teams, for Dwight McNeil. So, of course, the Everton player looks like he might be going to Selhurst Park. Has this been completed?
No, looks like it's a deal sheet.
Deal sheet. So
this one broke very late. So
it might be, of course, the 9 p.m. deadline has just passed, but it could well be announced to the media very, very soon. Of course, the media might find out a little bit later, but Matt, Dwight McNeil, what do you make of him moving to Crystal Palace? Of course, he's been quite an important player in parts for Everton, but do you think Palace are desperate, aren't they, to bring players in, considering the window they've had? They probably had the worst of the windows.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of value, I think it's probably not a bad buy, but yeah, I think you're probably right. I think they're probably a little bit under pressure on to bring in. Obviously, they've got one striker who's not very happy, who's wanted to leave. They've managed to bring someone else in, and unfortunately for that striker, which we'll discuss in a minute, the deal that what he wanted hasn't materialised.
Yeah.
Obviously, I know they've lost Eze obviously at the beginning of the season, didn't they?
Yeah.
And obviously bringing in Brennan Johnson as well was a good signing. So yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see what happens with Dwight McNeil at Palace. I don't know whether he's going in as a squad player, or I don't know whether he'd be a starter or not. I'm not 100% certain on this one. I don't know if he's going in for a bit of squad rotation. He can do a job for Palace, definitely. But yeah,
I think Palace have got problems. Palace really have problems. Of course, Mark Gay left to go to Manchester City in this window. He's a massive loss for Crystal Palace. Of course, Erebechi Eze and of course Michael Elise before him. It seems like that heart and that spine of that team is being pulled out. I don't think, and I'm going to criticise a manager here as well. I don't think it was sensible of Oliver Glasner to come out and say that he wants to leave Crystal Palace during a transfer window. If this happened, Matt, I'll be honest, if this happened at AFC Bournemouth and Andoni Iraola said, look, I want to leave AFC Bournemouth during a transfer window, it's a bit of common sense. It's probably destabilised the club. It's put a lot of players on the back burner. Who knows? They could have fought to keep Mark Gay. Mateta could have wanted to stay, which of course we'll come on to in a second. Had he not come out with that. What's your opinions of that?
I think it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because when you look at it across the board now, do managers have a lot of control on transfers anyway? Yes, he is leaving Oliver Glasner, but does he have full control on transfers? I very much doubt he does.
No, he probably doesn't.
It's you go back 20 years ago, and managers had virtually all the say on players that they signed. Whereas now, you've got technical directors and directors of football and things like that. I mean, you look at the setup we've got. Andoni doesn't really, he has an input, but obviously all the recruitment's done, by the likes of Simon and Francis, and what a great job they're doing. It must be a difficult one though. Yeah, when your manager does come out, it's like how much and say I'm off in the summer. How much are you prepared to invest? For that manager. It is a difficult one, but I don't know whether Glasner may have had much dealings with this. This might be from upstairs. This one possibly.
Well, I'm just going to quickly jump forward as well, of course, because Mateta is to stay at Crystal Palace as AC Milan move has fallen through. Whilst Glasner, and I agree with you, is not going to have much to do with the incomings and outgoings and the signing of the players and all the negotiations like at AFC Bournemouth. Andoni Iraola probably sets out a plan. He probably indicates what sort of players that he would like. Might have some names that he puts over to Simon Francis and Thiago Pinto. And then it's up to them to get them. But likewise, when it comes to a player leaving the club, with regards to Semenyo, it probably was a discussion between Simon, Thiago, and of course Andoni. Look, we need this money, or you can reinvest this into the squad, and they come to a decision. So I agree with you on that front, but Manny, this guy, when it broke that he wanted to leave Crystal Palace, it kind of threw it back to the Oliver Glasner, I'm going to be leaving at the end of the season side of things. It should never have been done during a window, because even though he hasn't got that control, it will disrupt the players. What do you think?
I completely agree, and both you and Matt have pretty much nailed it perfectly. I had a lot of sympathy for Glasner and Palace this season. It's really sad how they were dealt a dreadful hand going back to last season, when they were told that due to certain technicalities they would not get to play in the Europa League, and they'd have to take a drop down to play in the Conference League, and then obviously losing the likes of Ebrieze to us and a few other players. You can see right now that they're struggling to try to just to retain some sort of a foothold. They're not going to get relegated. In fact, I can tell you right now that in addition to Wolves, Burnley are looking as though they will end up being cut adrift. They're down 2-0 to Sunderland, with both goals coming in the first half, and we'll see in the second half if Burnley can show any kind of fight. I don't think they will. So once again, it's bye-bye to Scott the Bin Man Parker from the sounds of it. So I would probably go so far to say that what's happening with Mateta and Glasner is just sort of symptomatic of the malaise that's gone on around the club. And it's really sad how from the high of winning the FA Cup, things have just gone down. And I agree with you that there is always a time and a place to say things. To also say this in a January window when you're not too far away from the end of the season, it does destabilise the club. And that's why, I can't really have any sympathy for Oliver Glasner if the board decide that, maybe it's time to dispense with his services. I think Glasner will probably move back to the Bundesliga, and Mateta might, get his move next season. But until then, both of them are going to have to stay put. So maybe it's a sign that Mateta will just have to grin and bear it and start, putting in the shift, and we will see what happens. And they're going to need him at his best, because with the Crystal Palace connection, I do stand corrected on Angus Gunn. He did actually come on at half-time when Nottingham Forest played Crystal Palace at the City Ground due to an injury to the first-choice goalkeeper, Matt Sells. So it looks as though Gunn will probably have more chances to play, but with Stefan Ortega coming in with his pedigree again, that might remain to be seen. And of course, Forest are out of both cups, so it could very well be that whoever does get the gloves now will probably have the gloves until the end of the season. So that's Matt Sells and John Victor out. And, the timing has worked out well inadvertently, because I didn't see where Gunn was going to get his next minutes from. But now he's come on and put in the shift, so all's well. That's sort of worked out quite well for him. But with regard to Mateta and Glasner, there's really nothing more that I can say on this. And hopefully, until the end of the season, both player and manager will get their act together. And I think now with the window over, I think Mateta will probably be brought back into the squad if he trains a lot better, and then we'll see what happens from there.
Well, to be honest, Mateta I wonder how he's going to react to this move falling through, and it might come back to haunt Crystal Palace because is he going to give the 110%? He should do. He's being paid by Crystal Palace. I don't like these players that do just give up the ghost and kind of sulk and don't give 110%. Yes, we know who did that to us, and he's vilified for it, rightly so. But with regards to Mateta, hopefully he'll put on his boots, he'll stay strong, he might get his move, in the window in, of course, the summer, and then everybody's happy. But he's got a job to do for Crystal Palace because, to be honest, I kind of disagree with you, Manny, on this. I don't think Palace are really that safe, because we are seeing a bit of a improving West Ham, slowly improving, but improving, and Crystal Palace are kind of falling apart. So we shall see. We shall see. What we'll do is let's move off the subject of Crystal Palace and let's go to Wolves. And of course, yeah, we'll bring up Palace because Jorgen Strand Larsen has actually joined from Wolves. Yeah, I forgot about him. To be honest,
or form Wolves, if you read what it says.
Form Wolves, yeah. To be honest, I forgot about him on Saturday. Really, to be honest,
He had a couple of good chances Saturday to
he
score.
did. He did, but to be honest, from what Wolves fans were saying, of course, Dave Azzopardi, our good friend Dave, it didn't seem like he was over enthralled with him, and didn't seem like he was really bothered. He could be the man that effectively replaces Mateta, but yeah, what do you make of this move? 48 million.
I think it might have been 25. I think in the end, I think 40.
Was it? Okay.
I think 48 million was last year's valuation, but then I think it might be 25. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know for definite, so don't quote me. Yeah, I mean, I'm still surprised Palace went ahead with it, considering the Mateta deal, didn't materialise. But yeah, I mean, is this a case? I mean, it's a difficult one, isn't it? If the player wanted to leave, is the player going to be happy? They probably had to make this move because maybe this is going to be their, maybe he's coming in to go straight ahead of Mateta now. I mean, who knows? But yeah, obviously, watching your chat with Dave the other day, yeah, he didn't really fill me with confidence that Wolves rated him very highly. Did have a couple of chances against us. One was a header, which really, I think, put someone else there. They might have buried it. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens. Is this a new, it's a new start for the player, and let's see what he can do. Might revitalise him a little bit.
Well, it's a deal up to 48 million.
Right.
So there's probably perks on top of this. But this might be a case of Wolves cashing in. He hasn't had a great time recently for Wolves. Like you say, yeah, he did make a couple of good attempts, but to be honest, was I worried about him? Not really. In all honesty, going into Saturday, he's been a little bit of a lost player this season. Maybe it was partly because of Wolves. Let's see how if he improves at Palace. But I think he's going from a frying pan into what is a fire at Crystal Palace. Okay, Wolves are probably dead and buried. I think most Wolves fans that I've spoken to, and despite, I quite like to see Wolves stay up, of the bottom three teams in there at the moment. But, I think they are pretty much dead and buried now. In all honesty, let's see how he gets on at Crystal Palace. But I think this might be a case of Wolves cashing in whilst they still can. What do you reckon, Manny?
Completely agree. And I did mention that Wolves and now Burnley are going to be cut adrift. And, the reason why I think Crystal Palace won't get relegated is that there is still something in them that can, somehow pull out results if they get some decent players in. And Strand Larsen coming in might potentially be a decent thing for Mateta. Maybe it'll give him, the competition that he needs. It'll be the kick up the backside he needs. So at least he starts performing a little bit better before his next move. And, it is also going to be beneficial for Strand Larsen. I think, when you leave Wolves that are in a desperate state as they are in now, when you leave that sort of a club and then go to a club where there is a chance of him, at least staying up a little bit, it only makes more sense that he would want to move away. So good luck to him.
Yes, most definitely. Most definitely. I'm just going to quickly cover off one very, very quick one as well. Calvin Phillips has signed on loan and joins Sheffield United from Manchester City. He's had a bit of a bad one, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean,
Very bad.
For this
ahead,
one,
Matt.
I'm sorry, Manny, I'm talking over you there. Yeah, for this guy, I mean, he was great for England during the Euros and before that. And, unfortunately, he's not worked out for him at Man City. So I'd just like to see him go into a side and get some game time and get his performance back, because, I really rated him for England. I really did. But unfortunately, sometimes when you do make a move to a big club like City, it sometimes can hamper your career. But he's a really decent player, and I hope it works out well at Sheffield. And I hope he gets some game time, and I hope he gets his performance back. I really do.
Definitely. Well, let's just quickly go over our transfer window. We're just going to jump into that, and let's rate our transfer window. So the outgoings was Julian Arejo. He went to Celtic on loan. Of course, Antoine Semenyo, we know where he went, Manchester City for £64 million. Noah Botin went to Salisbury City on loan, and Roman Favre went to Auxerre for an undisclosed fee. The incomings, though, was Fraser Forster, unattached. He come in on a free. Alex Tofts come from Fanafrikos for 13 million. Christos Mandas, Lazio on loan. And, of course, our Samba star, Rayan, come from Vasco da Gama for £30.3 million. I know, Matt, you've got to shoot off in just a moment, but happy with this window?
Yeah, I mean, when you look across, both outgoings and incomings, yeah, I mean, it could have been, probably worse, because if we knew we were going to lose Semenyo. I mean, the talk that was going on for so long, we knew he was going to go, and from his career perspective, footballers' careers are only short. He's in his prime, and he's proven that at City now. He's really hit the ground running there and doing really well. So, yeah, I think none of us could be surprised that Antoine went, but conducted himself in such a professional manner. When you look at Julian Arejo, obviously I did a little video, I think back in September time, not long after the Brentford Cup game. And I kind of predicted in that video that this transfer window, he would go out on loan. Obviously, there's been a bit of a manager change and stuff at Celtic. So hopefully, he still gets some game time. I think it's very vital for him. So I think it's a good move for him. Obviously, Ferrer, I think initially it's an loan deal, isn't it? And then I think there's an undisclosed fee at the end of it. What I saw of him in a Bournemouth shirt, and especially during pre-season friendlies, I thought, you can tell there's a real decent player there, but just unfortunately the competition's been so strong in the time he's been at the club. And, again, might be, best for the player to move on and explore other opportunities, which it looks like he's doing. Again, recruitment, when we look at the players that have come in, first, obviously the first player we brought in was Fraser Forster, wasn't it? Forster.
Yes.
Okay. I don't think he's going to play. I don't think he's going to get a game, but and I think Manny might have touched on this in a previous transfer show. His importance is going to be on that training field, a bit like Scott Carson at Man City was. Be that that figure, that experience, that talker. And I think when there's been a lot of pressure on Petrovic, I think someone like Fraser coming in to pass on that kind of experience and be a talker, confidence, I think his role is going to be more important than people might actually think. Alex Toff. Well, is it Toff? Someone said it is pronounced differently. Have I pronounced it right?
Manny is the expert with
Manny,
pronunciation.
Yeah, I did mention, and I didn't want to, interject. You pronounce it taught, as in Alex taught
right,
Liverpool a football lesson. So, yeah. So go ahead, say what you want to say on him.
Yeah, no, thank you. So Alex taught. Robbie Keane spoke very, very highly of him. Obviously, he was his manager there for a period of time. Excited by this one, like I've said many times. I think, again, it's just a shout out to the recruitment, the scouting operation that we have, to pick out, players like Tort, who's got a very, very bright future ahead of him, and he's coming to the football club and he's going to be an asset wise here. And he's also going to, learn a lot and develop his game. So yeah, and when you look at 13 million, when you look at it from a business side of things, it's a decent player at very, very, I know it's 13 million, but in terms of what you see on transfer fees, it's a very, very good for the money side of it as well. And you look at probably the investment the club has made on previous players, and in terms of money that we've made back when players have moved on, this looks like it could well be another one where he might be worth a lot more money further down the road. Who knows? But for the meantime, he's going to be a great addition to the squad. And I think what they're looking at now is the type of player that can take the squad forward and up a level from where we have been. Mandas, really interesting signing. I welcome this one because I think whereas you've got Fraser, who's going to be the talker, the experience, Mandas is the one that's going to keep Petrovic on his toes, in my opinion, and really push him on the training field. And I think that's what Petrovic hasn't had this season. I've said that many times. So yeah, great sign in there. So it'd be interesting to see if he gets any game time. Will he? I mean, who knows? Who knows? I mean, Petrovic has put in some really good performances lately, and that's been great to see. So, but yeah, he's going to definitely keep Petrovic on his toes. And then obviously Ryan. I mean, have I said that one right?
Yes, you have. Yes, you have.
Thank you, Manny. Yeah, I mean, what a player. I mean, the impact he made just off the bench. I mean, we've only seen, a small part of him, but in terms of what, he did against Wolves, he's looking very exciting. They say he's Semenyo's long-term, replacement. And yeah, another one that I think is just going to really shine and thrive under Andoni's coaching. And he's the type of player that Andoni will bring on to the next level. I really, really believe that. So when you sum up this window, massive disappointment.
Yes.
But at the same time, massive promise. And again, just what great work by, Pinto and Simon Francis, the whole recruitment team, all the scouts, again, I think it's really, really good. Long term, there's still going to be a lot of work. Obviously, we know the Marcus Senesi situation. I don't think we were ever going to sign the centre back in this window. Maybe there's still some hope that he may sign. If not, I'm sure they've got their targets that they want to, which they're going to pursue in the summer window. But for a winter window, for a January transfer window, I think the business has been very, very good. So, yeah, very confident. And I think this breathes some confidence into the side for the last run into the season. So yeah, all in all, I would say this has been a good window. A good window, great recruitment, and yeah, let's see how they do.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you on that. It has been a really, really good window. Tort and of course Ryan. Ryan is, an exciting player. He is the replacement for Semenyo, without a shadow of a doubt. But he is younger. He's got loads of promise. I know that a lot of people are not keen on me or anybody discussing, his release clause here, but to be set at 100 million is, shows how
shows
valuable it is.
it shows. Yeah, I mean that shows the belief in the player's development.
Yeah,
I mean, release clauses are, part of the game. It's how it works. When I've read
yeah,
100 million, I've also read 86 million. There's a few different ones
yeah,
going about, but either way, whether it's 86 million or 100 million on 30.3 million, it's a big release clause, and it just sees that, the club can see this guy's future being really, really good. And they wouldn't put a release clause in there of that kind of value, between the agent and in the negotiation process, if the club didn't believe that, at some point the potential of this player will be reached to kind of demand that kind of
yeah,
money. So I think that also shows, belief in the player as well, which, again, excites you. I mean, you look at, Krupi,
yes.
Ryan, they are, the along with the guy that plays for Barcelona,
Mhm. Lascelles. No, Lamau.
Lamau,
Lamau.
they are the three top under 20 players, and we've got
Yes.
two of them. We've got two of them now. If that's not exciting, I don't know what is. And obviously, Krupi scoring at the weekend. Now he's actually ahead of both of them. Now he's got one more goal ahead of them now as well. So we've got two of those top under 20 players. At the moment. So if that's not exciting, I don't know what is. But yeah, great window.
Yeah. Yeah. Lamine Yamal is the player, of course, at Barcelona. So I do apologise if he's listening to Jamal Lascelles for nearly throw him into that, but I think he won't mind, seeing as he's 32. But he is playing for Newcastle, not Barcelona.
No, he's actually one that's got a potential move, I believe.
Is he?
Yeah, I believe they let him talk to somebody earlier on today. So I'm not too sure if the deal's gone through or not.
There
But
we are.
got a funny feeling it might have been Leicester.
Might have just walked straight into that. Yeah, there we are. The
Sunderland are now
error.
3-0. Sunderland are now 3-0.
There we are. 3-0 to Sunderland. Manny, what do you make of this window for AFC Bournemouth?
Two goalkeepers and two young talents. Not too bad. Not too shabby. Not too shabby at all. There is a part of me, of course, and this is my humour / whimsy getting the better of me, that wonders, are there any similarities between, a release clause and a prenuptial agreement? It'll sound, a very uncomfortable topic, and I do apologise for people who might be offended by that. Matt's pretty much nailed it pretty much about about how the club is in a great place now, having signed two outstanding young juniors. And of course, I did mention, as Matt said, Craig, that Forster will probably end up playing the Darren Randolph role when he was at Dean Court. Although you never know, it could very well be, and please excuse me. My apologies. It could very well be, you never know, that if Petrovic does get an injury between now and the end of the season, Forster could come in, because let's not forget Forster is the more experienced when it comes to playing in the Premiership. And Manders, talented as he is still, I would say, slightly unproven. But people often say, some coaches often say, that this is the reason why sometimes big clubs need to have three goalkeepers, even if the third goalkeeper ends up suffering for a bit of time. But it just goes to show, as what happened with Matt Sells against Crystal Palace, that, opportunities can come for goalkeepers when you would least expect them. So definitely some sensible business there. And I would say, gentlemen, that now that you've got a great deal of dosh from the Semenyo deal, you'd be best advised to use it well at the beginning of next season, because who knows what more exciting buys you could possibly get. We'll have to see. And nothing much else to say. I'm surprised that we didn't hear much about Romain Favre, who's gone to Auxerre. I think you did speak about him, Craig, and say that maybe he just hasn't been able to, quite make the grade at Dean Court, and maybe a move back to his native France will be the best thing for him. But, we're going to see what happens with him, and maybe it could prove to be the best thing for him. Maybe he'll get his, happiness for the game back. We'll just have to see about it.
Most definitely. But there we are. That is our window. So the players that were incoming and outgoing from AFC Bournemouth. We are just going to briefly run through all the transfers in and out of each of the Premier League clubs. So should we fire away?
By all means.
So let's start off with your beloved Arsenal, Manny. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to make this full screen as we go through each one, but everybody can hear you all. In, as you say, no signings. Out, Louis Copley to Crawley on loan. Ethan Nwaneri went to Marseille on loan. Of course, he was linked with AFC Bournemouth. Maldini Kakuri.
Kachuri, I think is how you pronounce it.
Kachuri, there we are. To Grimsby on loan, and Alexander Zinchenko went to Ajax on a permanent deal. Happy with the players leaving. Ethan Nwaneri, of course, we wanted him here at one point, but it seemed like he wanted to go to the continent. Disappointed you didn't bring anybody in?
Not really, no, Craig, because actually, to be honest with you, we should consider bringing a few players in if there is an emergency situation. But it is conversely an example of how supposedly well we do our business, that we get everything done at the beginning of the season, probably because we like to show faith in the players that have come in. And we probably only might consider going for emergencies if the situation desires. I mentioned briefly that Mikel Merino will probably be out till the end of the season, so we were looking. There was some talk about us possibly trying to get a replacement, but as I said, Sir Eddie Howe would not even countenance allowing Sandro Tonali to join a Premiership/European rival. So we did some decent business, obviously, at the beginning of the season, and I'm really happy that Victor Gyökeres has started to score some goals and prove that he does belong in the Premier League. And people are still going to knock him for saying, these goals were scored against not the best teams. He just adds so much more to our team than Gabriel Jesus does at this particular point. So I'm reasonably happy, but we'll see what happens between now and the end of the season, of course.
Fair enough. Let's move on then. And let's go to Aston Villa. Of course, they've been very, very busy, our next opponents at Dean Court. So in come Tammy Abraham from Besiktas for 18.2 million. Alisson from Gremio for 10 million. Brian Maggio come from Metz, undisclosed. Leon Bailey from Roma, a loan recall. And Douglas Luiz from Juventus on a loan. Out went Aidan Borland to Swindon on loan. Sil Swinkles to Chesterfield on loan. Donnell Mallon, he went to Roma on loan, but with a £21.6 million obligation to buy. Finley Munro went to Middlesbrough on an undisclosed deal. Kane Taylor went to Oldham on loan, and Yazan Ozcan went to Besiktas on loan. Matt, do we expect to see any of these players that Aston Villa bought in during this transfer window play against us on Saturday?
Quite possibly. I don't think any of them have been signed with an injury. But whether they start or not will obviously depend. But I personally think Villa have done one of the best jobs in this window. To be honest, they are I think the signings they've signed the type of players for the, that big push to try and tip Arsenal off the top. I don't know whether Manny agrees with me. I know he has a soft spot for Villa. But yeah, no, I think they've done some really, really good business here. And I think we've got a very, very tricky game on Saturday. But yeah, I think them and Man City, personally, have done the best business in this window.
Are you worried about Villa, Manny?
Yes, to an extent, because I'm also going to take this opportunity right now to say to all of these Arsenal fans who are now, gleefully mocking Aston Villa and Unai Emery, saying that they're done, primarily because they have a great deal of antipathy towards our former boss. Shame on all of you. Wind your necks in. This league is still not over by any means. What people tend to forget about Aston Villa is that they have this excellent ability to bounce back from some disappointing results. They had a poor home loss against Everton not too long ago, but followed that up with a very impressive win over Newcastle United at St. James's Park, Eddie Howe's former team, although I think they were missing Bruno Guimaraes. And now after a somewhat desperate home loss against Brentford, where they started both Luiz and Abraham, and I'm pretty certain that Bailey came on as a substitute, who's to say that they won't do well in their next game away from home? So sorry, lads. I'm really sorry to say this, but, beware the wounded villains. They could definitely pose a bit of a threat. So if you're not careful. And I did mention, Craig, in a previous window that Aston Villa are a club that sells to buy. And, Daniel Marlin, I know him. He's a former Arsenal youth player. And since he joined Villa, he showed plenty of flashes of great ability, certainly promised a great deal in terms of adding to the team. But maybe Emery, being a very astute judge of player performance, didn't feel that Marlon was probably going to sort of kick on to the level that Aston Villa would want. And more's the surprise because he's also a regular international for the Netherlands. But again, they've got to pick some players to sell in order to raise cash to get whatever players they may need. And they do a lot of loan business. And it could very well be that Emery's just decided that Marlon might benefit more from playing for another club and that Roma could be the place where he ends up doing some really good things. I like Daniel Marlon a great deal, and I think he will be an asset. But if it means bringing back a couple of old boys, Douglas Luiz was a fantastic player for them who was probably being wasted at Juventus and Nottingham Forest. He started against Brentford and looked almost back to his old self, and I think he'll continue to cook. And Tammy Abraham, one season with Aston Villa, 25 goals in the league, got Villa promoted. He could have stayed with Villa in the Premiership and played a lot more under Dean Smith, but sadly that didn't happen. You see the gymnastics that Villa had to do despite being hamstrung by PSR. People say that they're a badly run club with a high turnover of revenue to wages. But I tell you what, if they do win some silverware this season, be it the Europa League, the FA Cup, or maybe even the Premiership, hopefully not at Arsenal's expense, then, you could see revenue coming in. You could definitely see a large number of fan interest peaking. And Emery's done a magnificent job of being able to ensure that they qualify for Europe every season and continue to punch above their weight. And when you consider that, not too long ago, they got promoted in 2019, I think, and stayed in the Premiership in 17th and the 20th, in 2020, I should say. And since then, they've risen up. Gerrard nearly took them down a bit, but then Emery came in and the rest is history. And the business they have to do, they offset everything by having a very low net spend, easily the lowest in the Premiership. So they find a way. And obviously Munro, Taylor, Ozcan, Swinkles and Borland, youth players who will definitely benefit from playing elsewhere. Finley Munro going to Middlesbrough, from where, of course, Villa acquired a former cherry in Morgan Rogers. And just as you signed Rayan, they've signed Allison from Gremio, another talented Frenchman, and Brian Maggio. So they're a club also that enjoys dealing with youth. And there's a part of me that thinks there are so many more similarities between Bournemouth and Aston Villa than would meet the eye. And both managers are also from the Basque Country. So certainly very attacking managers at their best. Yeah, I should still be worried because although January is over and we're into February, the league is not won until May. Anything can happen. Villa have a knack of being able to go on some very good winning runs at the least expected of times. Do not rule them out. Do not rule them out. And especially if we get some injuries, Lord help us.
Well, there we are. That is Aston Villa's ins and outs. Let's go over to the G-Tech Community Stadium next. A place that we don't like going to. And in for Brentford come Kay Furrow from Club Brugge for 8.7 million. There's a lot of outs, but as you can see there, most of them are on loan. So Ewan Morgan went to Shrewsbury Town on loan. Michael Olakigbe went to Swindon on loan. Miles Pert Harris went to Oxford on an undisclosed fee. Eunice Emery Konak went to Oxford on loan. Matt Cox went to Shrewsbury Town on loan. Chance Hedman went to Harrogate Town, undisclosed. Gustavo Nunes went to Swansea City on loan. And Paris Magoma went to Norwich City on an undisclosed deal. So there we are. That is Brentford's activity. Not really sure much else to add to that. But yes, Brentford have let a lot of youngsters go out on loan. But let's go to the next team. Of course, Brighton and Hove Albion, and I'll just run through these. Income Pascal Gross from Borussia Dortmund for 1.2 million. He went back. Caelan Vickers from Barnsley, a loan recall. Out went Jeremy Sarmiento to Middlesbrough on loan. Aaron Cashin went to Blackburn on loan. Do Young Yoon went to Dordrecht on loan. I'm going to struggle saying this one, Manny. Fasundo Bonate went to Leeds on loan. Have I said that right?
Oh, no, my dear Mr. Signor Beasley. It is Italian, you see. I mean, Facundo, and then buonanotte is another word for good night in Italian, but he's actually an Argentinian, and this should be a good move for him because he is quite a talented player, but probably was not getting the minutes he wanted. I think a move to Leeds to work with their German manager, whose name I do not want to say because it might be a little bit vulgar, you see. It should be a good move for him, and I wish him good luck with that.
Do you know what? That's the best minute of this podcast that we've ever done. Manny, take a bow.
No, mate, I'm really sorry. I think I've angered a few Italians with that. That was awful.
That was bloody brilliant. That was great. I love that. I absolutely love that. Jacob Slater went to Harrogate on loan, and Ibrahim Osman went to Birmingham on loan. So there we go. Pascal Gross goes back to Brighton and Hove Albion, and Caelan Vickers is recalled from Barnsley. So that's an interesting one. So there we go. Let's talk about Scott the Big Man Parker's team. Burnley. James Ward-Prowse has come in from West Ham on loan. Out went Hans Del Cruz to Lugano. He went on an undisclosed fee. Joseph Bevan went to Dundee, undisclosed deal. Luca Osho, sorry if I did say that wrong, went to Paris on loan. Brad Grant was released. Joe Bevan went to Dundee on an undisclosed fee, and Michael Obafemi went to Blackpool on a loan. And how many is Scott the Big Man Parker down now?
Matt mentioned that they were down by 3 and we're into stoppage time, so I think that's how it'll stay. And I don't know if Joseph Bevan and Joe Bevan are the same person who've gone to the same club.
Yes.
Yes, it does look like that.
Sorry about that, Matt.
Do you think that Scott the Bin Man Parker has any chance of keeping this club up?
Unfortunately, not. I mean, James Ward-Prowse is a good signing. I mean, I think
Yeah.
he's a good player. I mean, you look at his delivery from set pieces, and I think he's quite underrated in that sense. But yeah, I mean, I can't see them signing James Ward-Prowse and that being the difference on whether they stay up or go down, to be honest. Obviously, the defeat tonight is cutting them adrift, like Manny was saying earlier. So, no, unfortunately not. No.
No, fair enough. And to be honest, James Ward-Prowse, I feel a bit sorry for him actually, because even though, yes, he used to play for that team down the M27, he's been a little bit in. Well, we haven't seen much of him at West Ham, so hopefully it's a move that gets his career moving again. But at the same time, I think he would have to be Superman to actually keep Scott the Bin Man Parker up this time round.
Agreed, completely.
Let's go to the next club, which is Chelsea. Of course, they brought in a new manager during this window. And they also brought in Caleb Wiley from Watford. He was a loan recall. Keanu Dyer from Volendam, loan recall. And Yissa Allo from Sheffield Wednesday for an undisclosed fee. So a fairly quiet window for Liam Rosenior. Out. Raheem Sterling was allowed to leave the club. I think me and Manny have had our say on Raheem Sterling, and we feel sorry for him. A lot of that is down to Enzo Maresca, though, not that man on the right-hand side of the screen there, Liam Rosenior. Leo Castledine went to Middlesbrough on an undisclosed fee, and of course, the Italian player, I'm going to call him that, when it was recalled from Brighton.
Yeah, he actually went straight back out on loan to Leeds.
Yeah, exactly. That's the same guy.
There
He went straight back out on loan to recalled from Brighton, and then he's been loaned. So we'll see him again. He's actually been sent out on loan to Leeds. But to be fair, I think I must say though, this manager has really impressed me with how he's come into Chelsea and how he conducts himself. I'm very, very impressed. But I think this was always going to be a quiet window. I think he'll make his mark on the squad, I think, in the summer. But yeah, I think this was always going to be a quiet window for Chelsea.
Yeah, I agree completely. And of course, Chelsea will be playing us in the second leg of the League Cup semi-final. And given, mind you, that the deficit is only one, I have reason to be concerned given Chelsea's upturn in form of late. So we've got to watch out for them. If they beat us by 2, then they're through to the final. And that will be a bit of a downer. But as Matt has said, I think the main business will be done in the summer with regard to transfers. Obviously, Axel Disasi has also gone on. I think it was mentioned that he had gone on loan to West Ham. I don't know if the deal has been pulled off at the ended at the last minute. I think he might have gone, but yeah, I'm just glad that Rosenior has started to treat the infamous bomb squad players with a little bit more in terms of compassion, and maybe he'll work something out for them very soon.
Yeah, and like we said the other day, we wish Raheem Sterling well, and hopefully he does find his feet somewhere else. But let's move on to Crystal Palace. They've been busy, haven't they? So Brennan Johnson went to Crystal Palace from Tottenham Hotspur on a £35 million deal. Hindalo Mustafa was a loan recall from Nuremberg, and Danny Imre from Blackpool was a loan recall as well. And of course, do remember Dwight McNeil from Everton could also be joining that list. Out went Romain Esse to Coventry City on loan. Nuro Amada went to Auxerre on an undisclosed fee. Luke Brown to Notts County, undisclosed. Mark Gay to Manchester City for £20 million. I'm surprised how low that was, really. Owen Goodman to Barnsley on loan. And Luke Brown's appeared twice. He went to Notts County twice there. So there we go. I think we've said all we need to about Crystal Palace. But yeah, I think Oliver Glasner, wouldn't, if I was a Crystal Palace fan, I wouldn't be particularly happy with him. Let's go on to the next team. And Everton is that team. And they've not really been very busy at all. Harrison Armstrong was recalled from Preston. Out went Francis I'm going to struggle to say this. Okonoko. I think I've said that right. It's Doncaster.
Okoronkwo. When it comes to these African names, Craig, you say it like you spell it and spell it like you say it.
There we are. I'll still get them wrong, Manny. You know what I'm like. Harry Trier went to Cardiff on an undisclosed deal. Will Tammon went to Tranmere on a loan deal. And Roman Dixon went to Stockport on a loan deal. I don't think there's much more that we need to say really about Everton, apart from they are our game directly after Aston Villa. Of course, Dwight McNeil might not be in their squad at that point, Matt.
No.
And yeah, although there was a lot of talk at one point of potentially Raheem Sterling going there. So just correct me on this. Can Raheem Sterling sign for Everton because he is now a free agent after this window?
Yeah.
He can, yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
up until the 4th. Well, up until the 5th of February, because obviously, unless the Premier League side has a space in their 25-man squad, in which case they have until the 4th Thursday in March, which happens to be Manny's birthday as well as Mikel Arteta's.
There we go. Look at that. Happy birthday, Manny, for the 4th Thursday in March.
That is far too far in advance, dear sir, but thank you all the same. And it's not nice when you share your birthday with a manager who isn't necessarily popular. I get ribbed about that a lot. But yeah, we'll see what happens then. I think we spoke about Sterling possibly joining Everton. I did tell you that with David Moyes being the one who pulled the plug on Paul Gascoigne's stay at Everton, I don't think it likely that he'd want to take a real punt on someone like Raheem Sterling, especially given the type of wages he's used to earn. Yes, he did, you could say, hit gold with Jackie Grealish, who, like Gaza, did back in the day, wears number 18 shirt, but Grealish is now, of course, out for the season. That's his England World Cup dreams now over. And I think now Jackie will be in limbo. So we'll have to see kind of what happens with Sterling. But very quiet window. No real incomings or outgoings, mainly youth players, and 3 loan moves, of course, agreed. I'm sure Cardiff City can do with some triers right now, so they've got one, and his name's Harry. And yeah, we'll see how Everton do between now and the end of the season. I don't know if they'll get European football, but they're definitely not in danger of getting relegated.
There we are. I don't think that will please the Goodison faithful. Although saying that, I can't really say the Goodison faithful anymore. The Hill Dickinson Stadium faithful doesn't have the same ring to it, does it? Moving on to Fulham. And in come Oscar Bob from Manchester City for 27 million. Out went Aaron Lupo B to Walsall on loan. Dharma Traore went to West Ham on an undisclosed deal, and Luke Harris went to Wickham on a loan. Anything to add to Fulham, Matt? I know we spoke about Oscar Bob the other day.
Yeah, no, not really. Yeah, no, not really on this one, mate, to be fair.
Fair enough. Moving on to Leeds United. I'm going to struggle saying that name again. The Italian player. Manny, do you want to take it away?
Facundo Buonanotte, and I think I told you he's actually Argentinian, but a large number of Argentinian players have Italian names, a lot to do with the history of the nation. And go ahead, Craig.
There we are. And out went Jack Harrison to Fiorentina on loan and Harry Gray to Rotherham on loan. I think we can probably move past Leeds, to be honest.
Yeah.
Not much activity.
Yeah.
Liverpool. In come Owen Beck from Derby, a loan recall, and a fairly quiet window actually for Liverpool. More
Well,
Tala and Die.
you say that,
Oh,
but they've obviously signed the player that was linked to Chelsea. He said he'd only signed for Chelsea in the last transfer show you did. His name's Jeremy.
Jacquet.
That's it. That's the
yes.
guy. He's actually had a medical today ahead of a £60 million move, but that deal won't complete until the summer. So he's
There we
actually
are.
going back to Rennes. I think it's Rennes who he plays for the rest of the season, and will join up with Liverpool in the summer. But he's had his medical today.
There we are. There we are. And at the moment, the only other signing is more Tala and Die from Amity FC, undisclosed fee. Out went James Norris to Shelbourne, undisclosed, and James Balagizi to Forest Green on loan. Manchester City, of course, Max Allain was recalled from Watford, and Mark Gay went to Manchester City from Crystal Palace for 20 million. I don't want to say the top one.
Well, it's a great bit of business.
It is a great
It's
bit
a
of
great
business,
bit of
but, you
business,
know,
and I think that the players that they've brought in, especially Semenyo and Mark Gay, you know, will do them the world of good. And can they, chase Arsenal? Time will tell. But I think these two signings will massively help them. And to be fair, they're probably two signings they needed. So, yeah, this is why I think City and Villa have done the best business in the window, to be honest.
it is painful, though, to see him playing for Manchester City. But, Antoine, we still love you. And out went Stefan Ortega to Nottingham Forest for 500 million. Jamie Simpson Pusey.
500 million?
500 million. I tell you what, Nottingham Forest, 500 million. That'll sort out all the old PSR for Pep, wouldn't it? 500,000. Oh,
Yeah,
dear.
while landing Forest in a great deal of trouble, I might add.
Yeah, exactly. Where have they got that from? Marinakis has found it down the back of the sofa. So Stefan Ortega from Nottingham Forest for 500,000. Jamie Simpson Pusey to Cologne on loan. Milio Lawrence to Luton on loan. Claudio Echeverri to Girona on loan. Jaden Heskey to Sheffield Wednesday on loan. Relation to Emil?
I believe he is Emil's son.
There we go. There we are. Oscar Bob to Fulham for 27 million, and Stefan Mifuni to Watford on loan. Let's go to, of course, Manchester United, who'll be next. And a lot of loan recalls, all loan recalls back in. Toby Collier, Sonny Adjafree, Ethan Wheatley, L.A. Harrison, Habib Ogonye, Joe Hagil, and Harry Amas, all recalled from their respective clubs. Out, Sam Maffa went to Kayseri Espor for an undisclosed fee. Harry Mass went straight back out to Norwich on loan, and Joe Hogil also went straight back out on loan, this time to Kilmarnock. I don't think there's much to say about Manchester United, but Michael Carrick, very, very quiet window, but he seems to be working wonders with the players he's already got.
He is, definitely. I mean, clearly you can see how much more they enjoy playing under him than Ruben Amorim. And frankly, I've got no sympathy for the Portuguese guy. There is also one more thing I'd like to mention with regard to Liverpool. They had, of course, sent Harvey Elliott on loan to Aston Villa. And Aston Villa, given the constraints of that deal, had made it clear that they weren't really interested at the time in making the deal permanent, because there was a stupid obligation clause that if he made 10 appearances, Villa would have to sign him, and they, really weren't interested in that. But Elliott has now, since then, been given some very good minutes, started against Salzburg in Europe and also came on as a substitute against Brentford. It does look as though Villa and Everton are going to try and find a way to work around the deal so that Harvey Elliott's future can, at least for this season, be resolved. And we'll see how it works. And he hasn't done too badly for Villa. It's just he's been a victim of poor circumstance, to be brutally honest.
Yeah. We did lose these slides, as everybody will be able to tell.
Newcastle. I've got you back. Newcastle and Sir Eddie Howe.
I'm not sure what happened there. Technical glitch. It just disappeared. I'm blaming StreamYard for that. So transfers in for Eddie. There's no signings. So Eddie's had a quiet window. Out went Antonio Cordero to Cadiz on loan. Ben Parkinson. Not Jen Parkinson, but Ben Parkinson went to Falkirk for an undisclosed fee. Joe Brayson went to Morpeth Town on loan. Joe White went to Bradford on loan. And Harrison Ashby went to Bradford on loan as well. I don't think there's much to say on Newcastle. Next. There we go. Nottingham Forest. So Stefan Ortega coming from Manchester City for 500,000, not 500 million. Lorenzo Lucca come in from Napoli on loan.
And so did Luca Netz this evening for 1.1 million from a German club. I can't remember which German club it is, but I believe it was a German club.
There we are. Out went Arnaud Calimundo to Eintracht. Calimwendo. There we are. To Eintracht Frankfurt on loan. Just Powell went to Fleetwood on loan. Jamie McDonald went to Oxford United for an undisclosed fee. And Jack Thompson to Barrow on loan. Crikey. Out of breath now. Let's go over to Sunderland, and they've a lot of outs, but one in, which is Jocelyn Tarbi from Maccabi Netanya for an undisclosed fee, and he looks very happy about it there. Out went Timothy Pemble to Le Havre on loan. Jay Matet went to MK Dons on an undisclosed deal. Not the same Jay Matet who was here at one point, I should add. Trey Samuel Agassani went to Shrewsbury on loan. Jake Waters to Spennymoor Town on loan. Dan Neal to Ipswich on loan. Aji Elise to Portsmouth on loan. Ben Middlemass to Swindon on undisclosed. Joe Anderson to Barrow on undisclosed. Tamer Tutifrov to Exeter on loan, and Arthur Masuaku to Lens on loan. There we are.
There is one more thing, Craig, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'd like to add. Sunderland also made the decision to let their former first choice goalkeeper Anthony Patterson go on loan, and he has signed for Millwall until the end of the season. Now, I feel for the poor chap, obviously, because he was, of course, their first choice goalkeeper as Sunderland went on to earn promotion from the Premiership by winning the playoff. But ever since Régis Lebris brought in Robin Roofs, who's literally raised the roofs in terms of his performances, so to speak, Patterson hasn't got a look in and only really played in a League Cup game against Huddersfield Town, which the Black Cats lost on penalties. So bad luck there for the Black Cats and Patterson. And you feel for young Anthony. It's definitely a move which I think he didn't want to make. He certainly, didn't expect that he would, see his fortunes go down so horribly after all that. But, it's a good chance for him because Millwall, I believe, are in the top 6 in the Championship right now. I think they're 5th. So there is a very good chance that they could make the playoffs. 8 points behind both Coventry City and Middlesbrough. Coventry City's lead wiped out. So Frank Lampard doing an Enzo Maresca there. And if Patterson will end up achieving successive promotions in successive seasons, that will end up being a very big feather in his cap. And of course, I will also mention that in addition to Patterson, They also signed England under-21 striker Tommy Watson from Brighton and Hove Albion, so that's another outgoing. So Millwall definitely doing what they can to try and earn promotion. And I hope Patterson gets some games and proves, Regis Lebris wrong. I do believe they might have had a replacement, come in. Dan Neil, of course, was also a big part of that promotion campaign, but he's now gone to Ipswich. And it's ruthless, really, from Regis, but, what can you do? Sometimes the squad just evolves, basically. And I'm sorry to have to add that in, but I didn't want to miss that.
Yep, most definitely. Let's go on to Spurs. Of course, the bottom half Spurs. And of course, Thomas Frankie is running out of time. So in come Conor Gallagher, Atletico Madrid from 34 million. George Abbott from Wickham was a loan recall, as was Alfie Dorrington from Aberdeen. Mason Melia from St Patrick's Athletics for an undisclosed fee, and Souza from Santos for 13 million. Out went Brennan Johnson to Crystal Palace, 35 million. Kota Kai from Borussia Mönchengladbach was a loan. Mana Solomon to Fiorentina loan. Jamie Donnelly to Oxford loan. Oliver Irau to Mansfield loan. Min Hyoik Yang to Coventry on a loan. Damilola Ajayi to Doncaster on a loan. Dane Scarlett to Hibernia on loan. And Yusuf, I'm going to struggle saying this, Akahamrich to Bristol Rovers on a loan. And
Yes, disappointing really for Spurs that they've let the likes of Dane Scarlett and Jamie Donnelly leave. Scarlett is, of course, one of their more talented youngsters. Donnelly is also a full Northern Irish international and was actually a very important player for Leyton Orient when they had a terrific performance in the FA Cup against Manchester City, if memory serves me right. And it's really sad that, neither of these two have found a place in the team's plans for now. But obviously good for Dominic Solanke that he's back and playing well. Conor Gallagher, obviously, Villa were interested in him, but they weren't willing to offer that much of a fee. But the jury's still out on Gallagher. I think, people might start to realise that they might have sort of spent a bit too much for him. Brennan Johnson going to Crystal Palace.
Oh.
Decent business for... you were saying, Craig?
Oh no, I thought we lost you, but you've come back.
Yes, I'm back here. I wasn't going to go anywhere. Brennan Johnson, obviously, good business for Crystal Palace. Forever a Tottenham legend for that winning goal in the Europa League final. And interesting business. Mana Solomon was, of course, formerly of the first team, but now he's gone to Italy to play. And it'll be interesting to see what Spurs do between now and the end of the season. I don't think they'll qualify for Europe through the league, so Frank will have to do an Ange Postecoglou and try and win the Champions League. But if he finishes 17th and wins the Champions League, I don't think that'll be enough for it to save his job. We'll find out soon.
Definitely. Let's head over to London Stadium.
If we can get through these last couple. I think, is this the last one, or that we got one more?
We've got Wolves as well.
Yeah, because I've got some breaking news just before we finish. So
right, I'll rush through these very quickly then.
Cool.
So, in for West Ham, Pablo Felipe from Gil Vicente for 20 million. Tatsi Castellanos from Lazio, 25.2 million. Kiba Lemedrid from Deportivo La Guerrilla on a loan. Adama Traore from Fulham for an undisclosed fee. Then out, Luis Paqueta to Flamengo for 36.5 million. Guido Rodriguez to Valencia undisclosed. Nicholas Fulkrug, AC Milan on loan. Luis Guilherme to Sporting, 17.5 million. Christian Heggie to Budapest on loan. Callum Marshall to Bochum on loan. George Urphy to Bristol City on loan. Junior Robinson to Boreham Wood on loan. Andy Irvine to Sparta Prague undisclosed. I've StreamYard's going mad again. Caelan Casey to Leighton Orient on loan, and James Ward-Prowse to Burnley on loan. And last but not least, as you did see very briefly there, if you are watching on YouTube, if you're listening on Spotify, you won't be able to see it. But to Wolves, Pedro Lima from Porto, a loan recall. Out Strand Larsen to Palace, 48 million. Fer Lopez to Celta Vigo on loan. Alfie Pons, Crew on loan. Kajana Hova to the Sheffield United on loan. Marshall Matesi to Paris on loan. Fletcher Holman to Swindon, undisclosed. Temple in Onajaka went to Shrewsbury on loan. And last but not least, Tawanda Chiriwa went to Barnsley on loan. And breathe. There we are.
That's it. That's the roundup. But yes, just some breaking news, which is AFC Bournemouth relevant, and that is Will Dennis has gone on loan. He's gone to Leighton Orient on loan until the end of the season. So that is a late deal done, and that has been announced by both clubs.
Well, fingers crossed he does get his chances at Leighton Orient. I know that we've run over the 2-hour mark, so I think we better wind it up now. But thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. I know that there was a lot of people coming in and dropping out from time to time, but we appreciate all of you. Manny, we will be doing a show very, very soon, mate, I'm sure. Looking forward to it, mate.
You and me both, sir. You and me good. You and me both.
Excellent. And Mr. Matthew Harrison, thank you for all your hard work with all these transfer shows. It takes a lot of effort to keep on the ball. It's not something that I could do very easily, but thank you for all your organisation. And I tell you what, we'll do it all again in the summer, I guess, don't we?
Yes, I imagine we will probably bring it back after the World Cup, probably towards the end of July, when things start getting, when there's a bit more to talk about. So
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And thank you, everybody, for staying with us tonight. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the bell button below. It helps this channel to grow. We do have memberships here as well, so do have a little look at them. And also Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, we're on all of them. But do come over to the YouTube channel because, like I say, we've got a nice community here. So please do join us. But I think we're all a bit shattered. I think it's probably time to sign off. What do you reckon?
Yeah, it's been a busy one.
It has been. Thank you again for joining us, and we shall see you in the next one.
TalkSport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search TalkSport Fan Network.
I should be like you, Mel.